Okay, so the next question that we have on the menu today is asking us um, if is the sine, I think they're trying to say sine instead of since, is the sine, cosine, and tangent functions odd or even? Okay, so pretty much we just need to classify all of these functions as either odd or even. Now let's actually define what these mean, what it means to be an odd function, so and an even function. So let's start with an odd function. What it means to be an odd function is that everywhere f of x is equal to f of negative x. You could also translate as saying symmetrical about y-axis. Okay, so that is the base criteria for an odd function. For an even function, everywhere f of x is equal to negative f of negative x. Okay, so pretty much what this means is that this is rotationally symmetric. So rotate entire function by 180 degrees, same thing. And not every function can be classified as either odd or an even function. Some functions are neither. For example, an exponential function is neither odd or even because it's different on both sides. But let's think about let's start with sine. Okay, so if we draw a sine graph like this, we know that sine starts at 0 and kind of goes in a pattern like this. Okay, so clearly it's not going to be an even number. So this is sine x. Clearly it's not going to be an even function because we are not symmetrical about the y-axis. But if we were to flip this 180 degrees, if you did a quick cartwheel, as you're upside down on the cartwheel, you would see that this looks exactly the same. Anytime that we have like this value right here is going to be completely opposite, or the negative version of that value right there, and that pattern is going to continue. Like this value will correspond to this value. This 0 corresponds to this 0 over here. We can see that sine has to be an odd function. Odd function. Okay, so that will be one of our key informations for our answer. Now let's think about cosine. So our cosine graph is going to look a little bit something like this. So as you can see, cosine function actually is an even function. It is perfectly symmetric. It's perfectly symmetric about the y-axis. Okay, so given that, we can see that this has to be a even function. So cosine is an even function. You can actually try this on your calculator as well. And you will be able to see that anytime you sub in cos of x, if you sub in the negative version of the argument x, you'll find the same answer. Or another way that we can write this is cos of x minus cos of negative x It's always going to be equal to 0. You will never be able to say that is not the case, okay, because it is an even function. Now for our last function that we want to analyze, we have the tangent function. And the tangent function, it actually looks, it's actually a little bit tougher to draw, so I'll pull up Desmos, and I already have it in here, but this is an example of a tangent function. So as we can see here, it is very similar to a sine wave in the sense that we do see like repeats, and it's always like starting down low and it's curving up, starting down low, curving up, starting down low, curving up on each subsequent cycle. And if we were to do a cartwheel and flip upside down, we would also see that it's coming down and all the way up. It's coming down and all the way up. It's the same if we look at it upside down or not upside down. So given that this, we know that tan has to be a odd function. As observed graphically. Another way that we can come to the same conclusion is that tan of x is equal to sine of x divided by cosine of x, which another way of saying that is an odd divided by an even. Now odd is going to overpower the even, so the result of this means that the result has to be odd as well. Because even, regardless of if we're on either side of the y-axis, if we have a negative input or a positive input, it's always going to be the same if you flip them. But for sine, it's not. So that property is going to lead to like a negative term out there. So the oddness is going to overpower the evenness. So tan has to be an odd function. Okay, so yeah, tan is an odd function. That's cool. So here we can say that the above solution is good.